What do you do with your $3.5 million between now and the end of next year with exploration, and how do you work out which one to focus on and which ones to potentially farm out?
Okay, well, just on the farm out question, the landscape in Ecuador has changed enormously. So because they've reformed their mining code and because they really need their mining industry to develop, it actually is they prioritize it as a strategic industry. The oil price collapse has meant that they weren't getting paid from the oil industry anyway, and now they're getting even less. So they're really pushing the mining industry. And the world has woken up to that fact. And so it's a very competitive landscape in Ecuador, and we are being called up the whole time with people wanting to do farm-in deals to get access to our expertise and our land positions. So the ability to do a farm out is completely different now to what it was 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago.
What do you mean by that?
That there are people willing to do farm-in deals now, whereas they weren't 2 years ago or 5 years ago.
But not in the sense that the type of deals that you do, they haven't changed. It's just that the number of people inquiring has increased. That's what you mean?
The terms of the deals are better, and also they're willing to come in and pay for much earlier stage assets. So the farm-in deal that we did on El Domo Curipamba was on a well-defined resource. You know, we'd been drilling it for 7 years at that stage, or 6 years. It was indicated and inferred resources about to go into PEA stage. And we did a value accretive farm out deal at that stage, but we've now got people looking to do farm-ins at a very early stage on our exploration portfolio, which are essentially grassroots in the sense that we've got drill targets, but we haven't drilled them yet. Now, as I said, exploration companies really get the rocket under their share price when they have a growth story that they can follow on a 100% basis. And we will keep our best asset, or what we think is our best asset, for ourselves so that we can drill it and report those results.
Which asset of your three is that?
Oh, there's a slight discrepancy within the team, which is our best asset. And so we've got to do a little bit of work first to work out which is our best asset. Freddie Salazar, great geologist, the CEO of the company, he really likes Rumiñahui up in the north. He's said he's got there's 1 hectare area where in all the outcrops he's seen, he says it's about an average of 2 grams gold with 0.2% copper. He said this is a really big and rich gold target. He's seen the alteration up at Cascabel, the Sol Gold asset, and he's seen the alteration in the veining in our area, and he says he prefers ours, and he wants to drill that as a priority, and we will be drilling that later this year.
Okay.
So that's got all the potential to be the company number one. The one I'm quite keen on is the one down in the south, Macará. It's the VMS target. It's got a lovely gold cap. The beauty about those gold barite caps is that it's often oxide gold, so it's free milling, very low cost operating. When I was down I was at a conference, one of the old timers who'd been working in Peru came up and he looked at our licenses and he said, "Wow, I like those." He said, "That gold cap," he said, "I reckon you've got 500,000 ounces at 3 grams a ton, maybe 3.5 grams a ton there." And I was like, "Well, okay, that's a nice compliment." And he says, "You've got all the indications of the VMS body underneath as well. I can't tell whether you're on the edge or on the top of it, but you need to do gravity. You need to do a gravity survey." And it's the classic thing for VMS deposits. You have to do, or you don't have to, but the best way to find these things is to do gravity surveys. So that means that Macará is running actually behind Rumiñahui. So the one up in the north, we can go straight in and drill. While we're drilling that, we can do the gravity survey and then come back and drill Macará.
Okay.
And with those, we can afford to do both of those. And at that point, farm out the one that we want to take on.
Okay, so that process will, between now and the end of this year? Or will it take a bit longer? By the end of this year, you'll make a decision.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. The field teams are at the moment kind of getting ready to go back into Rumiñahui. Freddie is on the phone all the time with the landowners. He owns some of the land at Rumiñahui. One of the reasons he's so keen to get in there is that when he first went there 25 years ago, there were these massive blocks, 10-meter blocks of boulders, rocks, which have obviously not traveled very far. And he assayed them, and they were running 20 grams gold and 2% copper.
Right. Which would get everyone's notice. Yeah.
So,
sure.
he really likes Rumigno. He thinks it's got real potential. But getting the field crews back in, as I said, mining is a strategic sector for Ecuador. We are being pushed to get back into the field. Obviously, with COVID concerns, we've got to do it in a very safe manner and not introduce, isolation, dealing with the communities, working that all out. But we're still looking at a plan to get into the field, wrap up the final drill pads, get the water permits for drilling, and aim to be drilling kind of September, October this year.
Okay, so you make an interesting point there in that Ecuador is a sort of relatively new virgin territory in many ways, although I do appreciate Freddie's of ex-Newmont and has been working there for 20 years, but in the sense where there hasn't been a lot of money piled in. The government is encouraging and wanting people to start mining for revenue reasons, but there are some groups who are anti-mining in the country who are either looking for you to stop or looking for assurances about the way that mining is carried out. So the government's going through some kind of assessment at the moment. I mean, what can you tell us about where that is and what it may involve?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Ecuador is an amazing country, and the mining industry has really struggled to get going there. And it's for a whole host of reasons. Some of it is political. It's historically had very socialist governments, which have been kind of anti-mining. It's had a very pro-environment and tourism and ecological bent to the politics. The local communities, the indigenous communities, are anti-mining. They're pro-tourism. It's been tough going, and in the past they have put on windfall taxes and all kinds of things to almost inhibit mining. The great turnaround, should we say, came around in about 2010, when the socialist government realized they couldn't afford their welfare programs. They couldn't afford their investment into social infrastructure, education, you name it. And looking around at what sector could provide the funding for those, the societal, the country level investment that was required, the only thing that could work was mining. Oil was ex-growth, and they'd done these very bad loans to the Chinese, oil for cash. Agriculture was ex-growth. It's also a dollar-based economy, so it's quite hard to compete with Peru or Colombia or Bolivia for coffee or cocoa. Tourism was ex-growth. And then the final kind of realization was that actually there is already mining in Ecuador. There's a lot of illegal mining. There's a lot of environmental degradation. And so the choice was between good mining and bad mining. And if you can get good mining, which is well regulated, safe, properly done, and it generates tax dollars and foreign exchange earnings for the country, so much the better. Now, that's all the positive. The negative is that you've got a community that doesn't really understand mining, or if it does understand mining, it's bad. It's kind of criminal enterprises, it's environmental degradation. There's a great deal of fear in the local communities about mining. And you've got a couple of very, very vocal anti-mining protesters calling for referendum and referenda the whole time. So it's one step forward, half a step back.
But you guys, I read something that was quite interesting. I mean, I like football. I think a lot of people like football. Most of South America likes football. But you guys, I think Freddie has started an initiative which seems to be growing. Personally, I'm not quite sure whether you're going to be a mining company or a football team, because you've created this kind of, I've forgotten the name. What's miners in Spanish?
Los Mineros.
Los Mineros, there you go. The Los Mineros program, which is about building out these local, football teams who, play in leagues and so forth. I guess that's not just for the love of football, but to help spread and educate the right way to go about mining and why it is a positive or could be a force for good. Can you tell us a little bit about that program? Because I've only seen bits and pieces, but it seems quite impressive.
Sure. I mean, Freddie's Ecuadorian. He's from the communities. You know, the El Domo project was discovered by one of our best geologists who lives in the town nearby. You know, we're not a foreign company coming in to kind of plunder the riches of the empire. It's a very Ecuadorian company with a focus on developing the community and working for the benefit of Ecuador. And Freddie has got a real knack for knowing what is going to work in which area. In some places it's a cattle project, in other places it's a coffee project. And around El Domo, he felt that there were two things that would work really well. One was a dance school with local cultures, and the other was this football team. And the football team, he sets up these little community academies, so both for male and female, boys and girls. They come through, and there's training, there's football, and he's funded also the state football team in Bolivar State, which didn't really have a football team. He's called it Los Mineros, and all the little community football teams in the areas where we're working can feed players through to the kind of the central academy. Okay. And we're putting some money into that central academy, and it's going really well through the kind of through the leagues, through the divisions. Yeah. And what we're speaking to some other mining companies. We hope that they'll take us up on it, but we're looking to offer them our template so they can set up their own little football academies in the regions where they're working, and that can all feed through to the mining football team, which of course helps a country realize that actually, here we go, the miners are a real deal as a kind of a cultural force for good.